This is breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Renee Summerhour with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We have some breaking news to share with you about your taxes. This morning, the Nevada Supreme Court ruled that 2 revenue bills passed by the Nevada Legislature in 2019 are unconstitutional. Now, the issue back in 2019, the Nevada state passed a bill to extend modified business tax rate, which had been set to expire in July. It also voted to keep a $1 fee that motorists pay to the DMV. Republicans sued, saying that the bill amounted to tax increases, and according to the Nevada Constitution, those bills needed a 2/3 majority to pass. Both bills passed with 1 vote shy of 2/3. And this morning, the Supreme Court sided with the Republicans by saying both bills required a 2/3 majority. So what does this mean for you? Well, I spoke earlier with Review-Journal politics and government editor Steve Sebelius about this ruling. Here's what he had to say.
Back in the 90s, they passed an initiative that said if you want to raise taxes, you have to get 2/3 majority vote in both houses. Seems pretty simple, right? Well, it gets complicated because in 2019, the legislature said we're not going to raise taxes, but these taxes that were going to go down or expire, we're going to keep those. So at the same level. But we don't need to get 2/3 for that because we're not actually raising taxes. Well, the Supreme Court ruled today that no, if it generates any income for the state, you have to get 2/3. And so those 2 bills that were passed in 2019 are unconstitutional.
So tell me a little bit about how this impacts the budget. I know one of the things that we heard as far as how much money we have, despite the pandemic, all this extra money. But again, how does this in particular with the taxes affect the budget?
Yeah, well, the money from these taxes, the state was counting on that, and the governor built that into his budget that he presented to the legislature. So now, which is 2 weeks left in the legislative session, lawmakers are going to have to go back, take that money out, and figure out how they're going to replace those funds, because that money has to be given back to the taxpayers that paid it. So those businesses that paid the payroll tax, the technology fee to the DMV, that all goes back to taxpayers with interest. So the state can't use that money going forward.
Well, I'm sure taxpayers will be happy to hear some of that, depending on, how they've been following this. But isn't this something that happened before? Haven't we talked about this before?
Yeah, back in 2003, there was a dispute about the taxes for schools. The legislature actually went into overtime, and schools were about to open, but they couldn't because they didn't have any money. So this went to the state Supreme Court, and in a ruling that surprised, I think, everybody, the court said, well, you can just ignore the 2/3. Well, that ruling was so unusual that even the legislature said, nah, we're not going to do that. They got 2/3, solved that problem, and that ruling, which was criticized from sea to shining sea in America in legal circles, has since been overturned.
That was Review-Journal's Steve Sebelius talking about the Nevada Supreme Court ruling today that 2 revenue bills passed by the legislature in 2019 were unconstitutional. We will have more on this developing story online at lvrj.com, and we will have an update on all of today's events for you this evening at 7 p.m. Now remember, you can also download our free RJ mobile app to get breaking news alerts sent straight to your phone, and you can also find us on Roku, Apple TV, and all of your favorite platforms. I'm Renee Summerhour. Thank you for joining us.
You've been watching breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.